The table is full tonight. Voices overlapping, laughter rising and falling, someone passing a dish past your shoulder without quite looking at you. And you are sitting right there, in the middle of it all, smiling, nodding along at the right moments. But somewhere behind your eyes, you have already left the room. Have you noticed how loud a room can be, and how far away you can still feel inside it? You are not imagining this ache, and you are not the only one who has ever felt unseen in a crowd. Even here, in this exact moment, God is not looking at the room the way you are looking at it. He is looking straight at you. And before this moment passes, He wants you to know something. You were seen the whole time. Maybe it wasn't a dinner table for you. Maybe it was a crowded office where everyone talks over you without meaning to. Maybe it was a family group chat that never stops buzzing, full of everyone else's news, while yours sits unread. Maybe it was a church pew, surrounded by hundreds of voices raised together in song. And still, underneath it all, that quiet question you didn't say out loud. Does anyone here actually see me? Wherever you are right now, whether the room around you is loud or silent, full or completely empty, take a slow breath in and let it out slowly. Let your shoulders drop, just a little. Let your hands rest open, palms up if you can. You don't have to hold everything by yourself for the next few minutes. You don't have to perform being fine. Not here. Before we pray, let's take a moment to remember everything that is already a gift in your life. Start simply. Start with your breath, in and out. That breath moving through you right now, quiet and steady, is not something you earned or built. It was given to you. It has been given to you every single moment of your life, without a single morning missed. Thank you for this breath. Thank you for this heartbeat, steady underneath everything you carry, working all day and all night without you ever having to ask it to. It has kept going through every hard season, every sleepless night, every moment you didn't think you'd make it through. And here it still is. Here you still are. Thank you for this body. Tired as it might be, imperfect as it might feel some days, that still carries you from one room to the next, that still lets you hold the people you love, that still lets you feel warmth and rest and relief. Thank you for this morning, or this evening, whichever one meets you as you listen. However it began, rushed or slow, easy or heavy, it is still a stretch of time you get to live. Not everyone was given today. You were. Now think, just for a moment, of one person who loves you. Maybe they don't always show it the way you need. Maybe they're not even in the room with you right now. But somewhere, someone carries you in their thoughts. Thank you for them, and think of one small mercy from this past week. Not a miracle, just a small mercy. A warm cup of something in your hands. A moment of quiet before everyone else woke up. A stranger's kindness on an ordinary errand. A text that came at exactly the right time. Thank you for that too. Thank you for the roof over your head tonight. However humble, however temporary it might feel. Thank you for the small comforts inside it. A blanket, a chair that fits you just right, a window that lets in a little light. These are not nothing. These are gifts, quietly given, easy to walk past without noticing. Thank you for the years already lived, the hard ones and the good ones both, because every one of them shaped the person sitting here right now, still willing to hope, still willing to show up, still willing to press play on a prayer instead of giving up on the idea of being known. Even the ache you feel, the one that made you press play on this prayer tonight, is proof that you are still capable of longing for connection, for closeness, for being known. That longing is not a flaw in you. It is evidence of a heart that is still alive, still open, still hoping. Thank you even for that. There is an old truth, older than any of us, that says to give thanks in every season. Not because every season feels good, but because gratitude has a way of loosening the grip that loneliness holds on us. It doesn't erase the ache, but it makes room, right beside the ache, for something steadier to sit down next to it. So let this be that room. Let this be the space where gratitude and honesty sit together, without one needing to cancel out the other. You can be thankful and still feel unseen. You can be grateful and still be tired of being the only one in the room who feels the way you feel. Both things are true, and both things are welcome here. Think, too, of the small ways you have shown up for others this week, even while carrying your own quiet weight. A kind word offered when you didn't feel like offering one. Patience given when you were running low on it yourself. Thank you for the strength it took to keep giving, even while feeling like you had little left. Thank you for the version of you that keeps trying, the one who still says yes to invitations even when they're a little scary, who still shows up to the table even when it's easier to stay home, who still hopes for real connection instead of settling for the easy distance of small talk. Think, too, of the ordinary rhythms that carried you through this week, the alarm that woke you, the coffee or tea that warmed your hands, the familiar walk from one room to another, the bed waiting for you at the end of a long day. None of it felt remarkable while it was happening, but thank you for it anyway. Thank you for the ordinary, because the ordinary is where most of a life is actually lived. Thank you, too, for the moments of laughter that did reach you this week, even if they were brief. A joke that actually landed. A memory that made you smile without meaning to. A small joy that slipped past the loneliness for just a second and reminded you that joy still knows the way to your door. Thank you for the version of connection you did experience, even if it wasn't everything you hoped for. A kind message, a shared meal, a moment of eye contact that felt, just for a second, like being truly seen. Even the smallest taste of real connection is worth naming and thanking you for, because it is proof that what you're longing for is not impossible. It has already happened in small ways. It can happen again, and thank you, gently, even for this ache itself. Not because the ache feels good, but because it has kept your heart soft, instead of hard, still longing for closeness, instead of giving up on it altogether. A heart that has stopped hoping for connection has usually stopped hurting over its absence too. Yours hasn't stopped hurting. That means it hasn't stopped hoping. Thank you for a heart that is still tender enough to ache. Breathe in and let it out slowly. Feel your chest rise and fall. Feel your hands resting. Feel the quiet underneath the noise of your day, the noise of your week, the noise of everyone else's voices. Thank you for this quiet. thank you for this exact moment. However small it feels, however late it came. Thank you for still being willing to sit down, to slow down, to open your heart even after a day that made it feel unwise to hope for anything at all. Now that your heart is open and grateful, let us bring everything you carry to God in prayer. Let's begin here. Honestly, exactly where you are. You have been surrounded and still lonely. You have been in the room and still on the outside of it. You have smiled at the right times and laughed when it was expected and answered, "I'm good," more times this week than you can count. And not one of those moments actually touched the place inside you that has been aching to be truly known. God, we bring that ache to you now. Not to explain it away, not to fix it in 5 minutes, just to lay it down. Honestly, the way it actually is. You know what it is to sit at a table full of people and still feel like a stranger. You know what it is to be surrounded by voices and still hear the silence louder than any of them. You know, because you made this heart, and you know exactly what it has been carrying. So we ask you now for peace. Not the kind of peace that depends on the room being different, or the people around us finally understanding, or the ache disappearing overnight. We ask for the peace that exists underneath all of that. The peace that can sit inside a crowded room and still feel steady. The peace that doesn't need permission from anyone else to be real. Peace. Let that word settle over you for a moment. Peace. Not the absence of people, and not the presence of them either, but the presence of God. Steady, close, unmoved by how full or empty the room around you happens to be tonight. Think for a moment of the specific rooms where this ache lives loudest. Maybe it's the open office, where dozens of people sit close enough to touch, and still no one asks how you're really doing. Maybe it's the family holiday table, where the conversation stays on the surface year after year, circling the same safe topics, never once going deep enough to reach the parts of you that actually need to be heard. Maybe it's the group chat that moves fast without you, full of jokes you don't quite understand and plans you weren't quite included in. Maybe it's the marriage or the friendship that looks, from the outside, like closeness, but from the inside, feels like two people living parallel lives, rarely truly meeting. God, we ask for strength, for the ordinary, unglamorous kind of strength it takes to keep showing up to rooms that don't always see you. The strength to walk into another family gathering, another meeting, another Sunday, without needing to hide the tired place inside. The strength to be honest with yourself about the ache, instead of just performing past it one more time. Strength. You have already survived every day that felt like this one. Every dinner table. Every crowded room. Every night you went home and finally let your face rest into what it actually felt once no one else was watching. That was strength, even when it didn't feel like it. And there is more of it in you than you know. We ask for provision too, not only for what fills a table, but for what fills a heart. Provide, God, the kind of connection this person has been quietly hoping for. Not shallow conversation, not another room full of people who never quite look them in the eye. Provide someone, even one person, who sees clearly, listens fully, and stays. And if that person hasn't arrived yet, provide the patience to wait without growing bitter. Provide the courage to keep showing up, soft-hearted, even after disappointment. Provide the quiet reminder, over and over that being alone in a room does not mean being alone in the world. And it does not mean being alone with God. We ask for protection. Protection over the parts of this heart that have started to believe the lie that this is just how it will always be. Protect this person from believing that loneliness is their permanent address. Protect them from the quiet danger of giving up on connection altogether, of building higher walls instead of softer ones. Protect their hope. It is worth protecting. Let's name a few more of the shapes this ache takes, because naming things loosens their grip. There is the loneliness of scrolling through everyone else's highlight reel, the group photos you weren't in, the trips you weren't invited on, the milestones celebrated by rooms full of people, while your own milestones passed quietly, barely mocked. God, meet that specific ache. Remind this heart that a feed full of smiling photos rarely shows the whole story, and that comparison is a thief that steals joy without ever giving anything true in return. There is the loneliness of being surrounded by family and still feeling like the odd one out, the one whose choices are questioned, whose life doesn't quite match the shape everyone else expected, who leaves gatherings feeling more like a guest than a beloved member of the family. God, soften that ache. Help this person find their belonging in you first, so that no family table has the final say over whether they are worthy of love. There is the loneliness of new seasons, a new city, a new job, a new stage of life where the old friendships have quietly faded and new ones haven't taken root yet. God, be the steady ground under this person's feet while new connections slowly grow. Don't let the waiting season convince them that they are unworthy of being known. Let it simply be a season, not a sentence. There is the loneliness of grief too. Sitting in a room full of people who love you and still missing the one person whose absence makes every other presence feel incomplete. God, hold that particular ache with extra tenderness tonight. Some loneliness isn't about being unseen. It's about missing someone who used to be the one who saw you best. God, you see every version of this ache. You saw it at the dinner table tonight. You saw it in the family group chat that made someone feel more distant, not less. You saw it in the pew, in the meeting, in the long car ride home when the radio wasn't loud enough to drown out the thoughts. You were not absent in any of those rooms. You were the only one who was fully present in every single one of them. Think of the mornings you've woken up already tired of pretending, tired of the small talk, tired of answering, "How are you?" with an easy word instead of the true one. God, we ask you to meet this person in that exhaustion. Let them feel, even for these few minutes, that they don't have to pretend with you. Not one word of this prayer needs to be edited before it reaches you. Think, too, of the specific moments this week when the loneliness felt sharpest. Maybe it was a lunch break spent alone while others gathered in twos and threes. Maybe it was watching a group photo appear in a chat you weren't part of. Maybe it was lying awake after everyone else had gone to sleep, wishing there was someone to call who wouldn't mind the hour. God, you were awake in every one of those moments too. Not distant, not indifferent. Awake and close and paying attention. We ask for healing over any shame that has attached itself to this loneliness. The quiet embarrassment of feeling this way when, from the outside, this person's life might look full. Full calendars do not always mean full hearts. Being busy is not the same as being known. Release any shame that has convinced this person their ache doesn't count, because their life looks fine on paper. It counts. It has always counted. Give this person permission to grieve the connections that didn't work out the way they hoped, the friendship that faded without explanation, the family relationship that never became what it could have been, the community that looked warm from a distance and felt cold up close. Grief over lost or absent connection is real grief, even when no one died, even when nothing dramatic happened. Let this person grieve it honestly, without minimizing it, so that grief doesn't quietly turn into permanent guardedness. Let's pause here, and if you're able, say this quietly with me. Not to prove anything, not for anyone else to hear, just for your own heart to receive it. I am seen, even here, even now. Say it again, slower, and let it land somewhere deeper this time. I am seen, even here, even now. You don't have to feel it fully yet for it to be true. Truth doesn't wait for us to feel it before it becomes real. God, we ask you to meet this person in the specific rooms of their life, not in some abstract, someday way, but this week, in the actual kitchen, in the actual office, in the actual pew or car or quiet apartment. Meet them there. Let them sense, even faintly, that they are not managing this alone. Rest. Let that word rest over you now, too. Not the rest of finally being alone and free from the crowd, but the rest of knowing that even when you're surrounded, even when the room is loud and no one turns to check on you, someone already has. Someone already is. We pray for the people around this person too. The family who loves them but doesn't always know how to reach them. The friends who care but get distracted by their own full lives. The co-workers who smile in passing but never go deeper. Soften those relationships, God. Open eyes that have grown a little too busy to notice, where there is room for someone to reach out first. Give this person the courage to be that one. Not because it's fair that they always have to be the one reaching, but because sometimes the bridge starts from one side before the other side even knows it's needed. And for the seasons when reaching out isn't met the way it should be. For the times someone tries to be known and is met with distraction instead of depth. Comfort. That disappointment. Don't let it calcify into distrust. Let it soften into wisdom instead. Wisdom about who to lean on, and grace for the people who simply can't meet every need, because no person ever fully can. That was never supposed to be their job alone. That was always meant to be shared with you, God. Thank you that loneliness, even the kind that hides inside a crowded room, is never a place you are absent from. Thank you that you do not need a quiet room to hear this heart clearly. You hear it in the noise just as well. We ask for grace. Grace for the moments this person has felt resentful of others who seem to have it easier, who seem to be surrounded and actually feel surrounded, not just physically present, but truly held. Grace for comparison. Grace for the tired thoughts that show up at 2 a.m. Grace for every silent tear cried in a bathroom during a party, a wedding, a holiday gathering that was supposed to feel warm and instead felt hollow. Grace, let it cover every one of those moments now. Everyone. Not to erase that they happen, but to remind you that none of them disqualified you from being loved, from being worthy of connection, from being exactly the kind of person someone else has been hoping to find too. God, give this heart the courage, little by little, to keep opening, not recklessly, but wisely. Help them recognize the difference between a room that will never truly see them and a person who might, if given the chance. Give them discernment for who to invest in, and gentleness for themselves while they figure that out. Give them, too, the willingness to be a little braver in small ways, to answer a question honestly instead of with the usual, "I'm fine," to stay 5 minutes longer in a conversation that's starting to go somewhere real, to reach out first, even when it feels vulnerable. Let each small act of courage be a seed. Not every seed grows into something deep, but some will. And it only takes a few. And in the meantime, in every meantime, every waiting season, every crowded room before the right person walks into it, be enough. Not instead of human connection, but underneath it, holding it steady, so that no single relationship has to carry the full weight of making this person feel whole. God, we ask you also to search this heart honestly, because sometimes loneliness builds walls of its own without us noticing. Show this person, gently, if there are places where fear has quietly kept people at arm's length, where the fear of being hurt again has started to look like independence, when really it's just protection wearing a different name. Help them tell the difference and give them the courage, slowly, to lower the walls that no longer need to be so high. Give them, too, the wisdom to release relationships that were never going to become what they hoped. The friendships that only exist in convenience. The family dynamics that will likely never deepen no matter how hard they try. Not with bitterness, but with peace. There is a strange freedom in accepting a room for what it is, instead of continuing to hope it will one day become something else. Free this heart from that particular exhaustion. Help this person, too, to stop measuring their worth by attendance, by how many people showed up for their birthday, how many replied to their message, how many noticed when they were quiet for a while. Attendance is not the same as love, and love is not always loud. Some of the steadiest love in this person's life may be quiet, unnoticed, easy to overlook precisely because it doesn't announce itself. Help them see it, and in the rooms that do have potential, the co-worker who has shown small signs of warmth, the neighbor who always waves and means it, the family member who has softened over the years. Give this person eyes to notice those openings. Loneliness has a way of making us blind to the small doors that are already cracked open, because we're so used to scanning for the doors that stay shut. Open their eyes tonight. Let them notice the doors that are already ajar. We also lift up the ordinary logistics of connection, the courage to send the text first, to make the call, to say, "I'd love to see you," out loud, instead of just thinking it. So many friendships stay distant, not because people don't care, but because everyone is quietly waiting for someone else to go first. Let this person be willing to go first, even when it feels risky, even when there's no guarantee it will be received the way they hope, and for the moments it isn't received well, for the invitation that goes unanswered, the vulnerability that gets brushed past. Protect this heart from concluding that trying was a mistake. One unanswered text is not proof that reaching out doesn't work. It is simply one room, one person, one moment. There are other rooms. There are other doors. Keep this heart from closing all of them, because one didn't open the way it hoped. God, thank you that you are patient with this process, patient with the slow work of a guarded heart learning to trust again, patient with the awkward first steps toward real connection, patient with every attempt that doesn't quite land the way it was hoped. You are not in a hurry with this person, and you are not disappointed in how long healing takes. Let them extend that same patience to themselves. And God, for the version of this ache that shows up specifically around faith and community, for the person who has sat in a full sanctuary and still felt like a visitor, who has raised their hands in worship, surrounded by hundreds, and still gone home to an empty apartment with no one to call. Meet that ache directly. A crowd singing the same song does not always mean a community that truly knows each other. Build real community around this person, not just shared attendance. Let them find the handful of people within any larger room who are willing to go deeper than the surface, because a room this size doesn't need everyone in it to know your name. It only needs a few. We also ask for tenderness toward the version of this person who sometimes wonders if they're simply too much or not enough for the connection they're longing for. Quiet that voice tonight. It has never told the truth. The right people, in the right season, will not experience this person as too much. They will experience them as exactly enough, because true connection was never about being a perfectly easy, low-maintenance presence. It was always about being known, complexity and all, and still being chosen. Give this heart the imagination to picture what real connection might actually feel like, even before it arrives. Not to force it, but to remind the heart that it is possible, that it is not a fantasy reserved for other people's lives. Let them picture a conversation where they don't have to explain themselves twice. A friendship where silence is comfortable, not awkward. A room where they walk in and someone's face actually lights up. That room is coming. Let hope hold space for it. Finally, God, we ask that even before that fuller connection arrives, you would let this person feel your nearness as a genuine comfort tonight. Not a consolation prize while they wait for something better, but a real, sufficient presence that carries them through tonight and tomorrow, and every room in between. We also pray over the small, practical moments still ahead this week, the next gathering on the calendar, the next family call, the next time this person has to walk into a room not knowing whether they'll be truly seen. Go before them into that room, God. Soften whatever needs softening, in the room and in their own heart. Let them walk in a little less braced for disappointment, a little more open to the possibility that this time might be different. And if this time isn't different, if the room is just as distant, the conversation just as shallow, the ache just as present when they walk back out, let them still know they did not fail. Showing up honestly, again and again, in rooms that don't always meet you halfway, is not failure. It is quiet, steady courage. Keep giving this person that courage, one room at a time, for as long as it takes. Let this prayer settle now, slowly, like the last light fading gently at the end of a long day. Peace over this heart tonight. Strength for the room still ahead. Grace for every version of this ache. Rest, even here, even now. And as you rest in these words, Hear what God wants to whisper to your heart today. I know exactly where you were tonight. I know the table, the room, the pew, the group chat. I was there before you sat down, and I was there when you excused yourself to catch your breath. You did not slip past my notice for even a moment. Not one. You have believed some days that being surrounded and still lonely means something is wrong with you. That you are somehow bad at connection, bad at being known, bad at belonging. That is not true. It was never true. Some rooms simply were not built to hold what you carry. That is not a flaw in you. That is a mismatch between your depth and their shallow water. There is an old promise that says a person walking alone can be knocked down, but two together can help each other up. And a promise like this doesn't threaten those without someone beside them. It points to the truest companion of all, the one who never leaves and never grows tired of staying close. I have never once left you in any room. Not the dinner table, not the office, not the nights you scrolled through everyone else's easy laughter and wondered why yours felt so far away. I was as close to you in your loneliest moment this year as I am to you right now. Say this quietly with me, one more time tonight, slowly, and let each word find its place. I am not alone. Not tonight. Not ever. Say it again. I am not alone. Not tonight. Not ever. Even when it doesn't feel like it. Especially when it doesn't feel like it. Feelings tell the truth about how a moment feels. But they don't always tell the truth about what is actually real. And what is actually real is this. I am with you. I have been with you. I will be with you tomorrow. In whatever room you walk into next, there is a promise too, about being fully known. Known before a single word is even spoken, searched out and understood completely, in every direction, every hour of the day and night. That is not a distant, someday kind of knowing. That is the kind of knowing that is happening right now. As you listen to this, you do not have to explain yourself to me the way you have to explain yourself to everyone else. You do not have to translate your ache into small talk or shrink it down to something easier for a crowded room to receive. Here, with me, you can bring the whole thing, the tired parts, the lonely parts, the parts you haven't said out loud to anyone. I see the effort it takes you to keep showing up, warm-hearted, to rooms that don't always meet you halfway. I see it, and I am not indifferent to it. Every quiet act of courage, every time you chose to stay open instead of shutting down, I have counted everyone. I see the way you have kept loving people, even when it wasn't returned the way you hoped. I see the way you still show up to family gatherings, still answer the phone, still say yes to invitations that scare you a little, even after being disappointed before. That is not weakness. That is a rare kind of faithfulness, and I notice it even on the days no one else does. There is a promise that says those who wait, who hope, who keep trusting even in tired seasons, will find their strength renewed. Not once, but again and again, like something that keeps being refilled, rather than something that simply runs dry and stays that way. Your strength is not a finite thing you are slowly using up. It is something I keep restoring in you, morning after morning, even the mornings that don't feel restored at all. Trust that renewal is happening, even when you cannot feel it happening. I also want you to hear this. The loneliness you feel in a crowd is not a punishment, and it is not proof that something is broken in you. Some of the most tender, perceptive hearts feel the most alone in shallow rooms, not because they are unlovable, but because they were made for depth, and shallow water was never going to satisfy them. That sensitivity, that need for real connection, is not too much. It is part of how I made you, and it is not something to apologize for. There is a promise that when 2 or 3 gather in my name, I am there among them, close, present, not distant. A reminder that true connection was never meant to be found in the size of the crowd, but in the honesty of the hearts within it. It only takes 1 or 2 honest hearts in a room to change the whole room. You may only need 1. I am already preparing that kind of connection for you. A friendship, a conversation, a relationship where you won't have to perform, where you'll be able to bring your full self and be met, not managed. It may not look like what you pictured. It may come slower than you'd like, but it is coming, and I have not forgotten this longing, and about the connection you have been longing for, the person or people who will truly see you. I have not forgotten that longing. It is not too much to ask. It is not evidence that you are too needy, or too much, or too complicated to love well. It is evidence that I built you for closeness, and closeness is still coming, in its time, in its way. Some of it may come through people you haven't met yet. Some of it may come through relationships you already have, deepening in ways you can't yet imagine. A friendship that has been quietly waiting for you to go 1 layer deeper. A family member who is more ready to truly listen than you've given them credit for. And some of it, the steadiest, most reliable part of it, is already here, in me, closer than the room you're sitting in right now. Do not let this season of feeling unseen convince you to stop trying to be known. That would be the real loss, not the loneliness itself, but the slow closing of a heart that used to hope for closeness. Keep your heart soft. I will protect it while it stays open. I also want to remind you of something you may have forgotten. You have been someone else's answered prayer before. Someone, somewhere, once felt less alone because you showed up, because you noticed them when others didn't, because you stayed a little longer than you had to. That capacity for real connection is still in you. It didn't leave just because it hasn't been returned lately. There is a promise that describes love this way: patient, kind, not envious, not keeping score of wrongs, always hoping, always enduring. It is not a description of a perfect feeling. It is a description of a steady choice, made again and again, even in ordinary, unremarkable rooms. That is the kind of love I am growing in you, even now, even in this lonely season. It is not wasted. It is being prepared for the connection that is coming. I know it is hard to hope for people again after being disappointed by them. I know how tempting it is to decide that it's safer to expect less, to need less, to keep everyone at a comfortable distance where they can't let you down as deeply. But I did not make you for a small life kept safe behind distance. I made you for closeness, even knowing closeness comes with risk. Don't let the risk talk you out of the very thing you were made for. There is a promise, too, that describes the kind of people I call near to me. The broken-hearted, the crushed in spirit, not as people I keep at a distance, but as people I draw close to, tenderly, without hesitation. If your spirit feels crushed tonight from one too many rooms that didn't see you, you are not far from me right now. You are exactly the kind of heart I move toward, not away from. Let me remind you too, that seasons of loneliness are often the seasons where the deepest growth happens. Not because the loneliness itself is good, but because it has a way of stripping away the noise and showing you what you actually need and who you actually need. Don't rush past what this season is teaching you. It will not be wasted, even though it is hard, and when the new connection does come, and it will, you will recognize it, because it will feel different from the shallow rooms you've grown used to. It will feel like being asked real questions and actually being listened to. It will feel like silence that isn't awkward. It will feel like being fully yourself and watching someone lean in instead of away. You will know it when it arrives, because you have already learned the hard way what its absence feels like. Until then, let me be the room that never grows crowded and never grows cold. Let me be the presence that doesn't require you to compete for attention, to earn your place, to perform a version of yourself easier for others to digest. You never have to do any of that with me. You never have. This is the one room where you have always, fully, completely belonged. I want you to carry this thought with you into tomorrow. Loneliness is loud, but it is not the loudest voice in your life. My voice is louder, even when it's quiet. Even when it sounds like nothing more than a steady, wordless peace settling over an anxious heart. That peace is me, reminding you, without needing language, that you are not forgotten. There is a promise that describes a hope that does not put us to shame, because it is rooted not in our own effort, but in a love poured out into the heart, steady and unwavering. That is the kind of hope I am offering you tonight. Not a fragile hope that depends on the next gathering going well, but a hope anchored in something that cannot be shaken by one more lonely room. So take this with you. The next time you find yourself surrounded and still feeling alone, pause for just a moment, right there in the room, and remember this prayer. Remember that you are seen. Remember that you are not alone. Not tonight. Not ever. Let that truth steady you, even before anything about the room itself changes. Let these promises settle over you one more time, without needing to rush past them. Peace, because you are held even in the loudest, loneliest room. Strength, because it is renewed for you, again and again, even when you feel spent. Grace, for every ache, every comparison, every tear cried where no one else could see. Rest, because the weight of being fully known and fully seen was never meant to rest on your shoulders alone. You were never asked to be your own witness. I have been watching all along. Carry these promises with you, and before you go, receive this final blessing. May you leave this moment lighter than you arrived. May the ache that brought you here tonight be met, little by little, with the quiet certainty that you are seen. Not someday, not eventually, but right now, exactly as you are. May the next room you walk into feel a little less heavy, because you are carrying this truth with you. You are never alone in any of them, not even the ones that felt the emptiest. May you find, in the coming days, one small moment of real connection, A conversation that goes deeper than small talk. A glance that actually lands. A person who stays a little longer than expected. And may you have the courage to receive it when it comes, instead of guarding yourself against it out of habit. May your strength be renewed tonight, quietly, while you sleep. May your heart soften toward hope again, even if it has grown a little guarded this year. May grace cover every comparison, every disappointment, every version of loneliness you have carried in rooms full of people who never quite noticed. May you carry into every room this week the quiet knowledge that your worth was never decided by a crowd. It was decided long before any of these rooms existed, by the one who made you, who knows you completely, and who has never once needed a crowd's permission to love you fully. May you wake up tomorrow with a little more courage than you had today. Courage to answer honestly when someone asks how you're doing. Courage to stay 5 minutes longer in a conversation that's starting to feel real. Courage to believe that you are worth truly knowing. And may you remember, tomorrow morning and every morning after, that being surrounded and still feeling alone was never a life sentence. It was a season, and seasons change. May the next family gathering feel a little warmer, because you walk in already knowing you are loved beyond that room, whether that room fully shows it or not. May the next work week feel a little lighter, because you carry a quiet confidence that your worth was never measured by how many people noticed you in a meeting. May the next quiet evening at home feel like rest instead of exile, because solitude and loneliness are not the same thing, and you are learning, slowly, to tell them apart. May you begin to notice the small doors that are already open around you. The coworker who has been waiting for someone to ask them a real question. The neighbor who would welcome a longer conversation. The family member who has been hoping you'd call first. May you have the courage to walk through at least one of those doors this week, and on the nights ahead when the ache returns, as it likely will, because healing is rarely a straight line. May you remember this prayer. May you remember that you were seen once, clearly, fully, in this exact moment, and that the same eyes that saw you tonight will see you again tomorrow, and the day after. And every day the ache tries to convince you otherwise. You are seen. You have always been seen, not by everyone in every room, but by the one who matters most, the one who never once looked away. If this prayer brought you even a little peace tonight, consider staying close to this space. Like this video if it met you where you were. Subscribe to The Graceful Dawn if you'd like a quiet moment like this one waiting for you again. And if you know someone who has been feeling unseen lately, even in a full room, this might be the gentlest way to remind them they aren't. Rest now, beloved. Grace will meet you again at dawn.